It is Friday here at the watch party. We made it through the week almost. You still got to finish, today and all that stuff. That is, except for our friends over in Sweden and Norway, and I forget wherever everyone else is from. It's evening for you guys, so have at it. We got our, you guys are probably already on your drinks. Am I right? I mean, that is if you're addicted. Anyways, check it out, check it out, check it out. I'm back on the Nas. I'm back on the Nas. Except this one is a Sonic Sour. I thought it was like green apple. It's just generally Sonic Sour. The one question becomes, what the hell flavor is Sonic Sour? Where does that come from? Nobody knows. Where does Nas come from? Did they actually pump nitrous oxide into this? Crazy. Come on, man. Hence the reason why this will be my last few weeks drinking these damn things every Friday. Just so you guys know, I need a new regular Friday, I guess, style of drink, but I'm coming back to my roots. Not bad. Not bad. Damn it, I forgot my water. Anyways, that's going to be the drink of choice for this entire hour, and there's plenty to talk about, as usual. As I told you guys yesterday, I'm trying to trim these down a little bit. Maybe have more things I'm willing to talk about. That just requires me to potentially be further back. Bubba Frank says there's a citric acid flavor. Damn it, that doesn't make it sound good. It tastes okay though. Nas is my is that's my brand. Anyways, let's get started. I got some updates, a couple of updates, different stories that we've talked about this past week. We've also got some trouble that's brewing for more of this whole administration, their fascism that they're pushing, the court battles that they keep on losing, and we also found the pipe bomber from January 6th. Man, they are celebrating. That is until they hear what it is that guy is all about. It's an age old tale of MAGA people jumping forward and talking about what is it they're all happy about and who it is that's done these things. That is before they get really tight lipped or then shift on to the next thing. I can't wait for that. There's a good reason that I can go ahead and get started so we can get to that eventually because I'm starting with a different thing. This week, it frustrated me. Maybe it was even yesterday. Who knows which day it is anymore? Donald Trump went on his tirade against Somalis, specifically Somali Americans up in Minnesota. And man, he was on it. It was like a blatant racist tirade. It was multiple ones, actually, because he feels that severely strong about all this. Hey, here's one of those Somali Americans up in Minnesota. He was talking to CNN. When CNN talks to a voter, they might have been in favor of this guy. This is what he had to say in response to those racist tirades.
What would you say to the president if he were standing here right now?
Mr. President, we campaign for you. We have hope in you. We see hope in you. Please differentiate between good, bad, and evil.
That's a Somali immigrant who voted for President Trump in 2024, but now Trump is demonizing Somalis in America, specifically here in Minnesota.
I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country.
I got 5 children. My children are no garbage. I campaigned for the president in 2024. I actually went out and we reached 50 million people endorsing Trump 7 days before the election.
What drew you to the president?
Because we believed he was an agent of chaos. We couldn't afford anything back then. There was a fentanyl crisis. There was an issue of affordability. The living standards went down. Crime issues. These are 5 very important things to us. And we believe that Trump would be the solution to it. I've been a Republican for over 25 years. I'm not going to stop being a Republican. But what I do know is for a fact is we're getting killed out here because people are saying, we told you so. We told you so.
You can understand his motivations there at the back end. That Somali American man, he's disappointed in what President Trump is now calling his kids garbage. Weird. Your 5 kids aren't garbage? It's odd because the guy that you campaigned for, as he was calling everyone else garbage and probably also insinuated that your kids were garbage during the campaign, you still campaigned for him. Free country, do what you want. Maybe assume that the white supremacist will think that you're one of the good ones that he can pat on the head and say, good job, little guy. You're my African American over there. And you can be proud of that. There's plenty of black folks that are proud of being, pets of Donald Trump, that, similar to the way you used to think. Maybe he still thinks that way. But I want to point out that he said he wants Trump to differentiate between the good, bad, and evil. that would require someone with a thought process. That would require someone who doesn't sweepingly judge entire groups of people. Matter of fact, I want to show you guys just how hardcore our friend Mohammed Amin Ahmed campaigned for Donald Trump. This is back during the campaign, obviously, and he was all on board. That is before, he called his kids garbage.
We love our brothers and sisters who are Democrats, but you left us. And because the left left us, join the right, vote for Trump 2024, vote for Joe Trape 2024, vote for Mazie Young in St. Paul 2024, vote for Tajud in CD3 2024, vote for Tom Emma, our lion out of St. Cloud. Farhan is here and is endorsing him. And please go out and vote, because voting for Trump without soldiers is giving him a failure. So please vote. Again, for the school boards, we have a ton of people running who are in the school board from all over the state. And please go vote for the Republican Party this time. Thank you so much.
That was our friend, even endorsing Tom Emmer. You know what else Tom Emmer's done? I talked about that the other day too. He came forward and piggybacked on what Donald Trump has been saying, in fact, went further. So, I wonder if he still feels the same way also about Tom Emmer, who, by the way, oddly sided with Donald Trump's racism over your vote for him and your campaigning for him. As a matter of fact, this is how this Nazi Republican Party works. What they do is they wait for Donald Trump to say or do something completely racist, bigoted, or hateful, or violent and bloodthirsty, and then they go do the same thing and they enhance it because they have to make him look better. Problem is everyone's watching now.
President Trump has done such a phenomenal job of removing these silos between our intelligence agencies, between the FBI, the DEA, Homeland Security investigations. We've been all over this. I mean, we've also seen, a nexus of terrorism there as far as this Somali population and others in these communities giving money to terrorist cells outside of our country. That's something we're certainly tracking down. President Trump.
There's terror cells. Ahmed, there's terror cells. Are your 5 children a part of the terror cells? Because the Trish McLaughlin, the spokesperson there in the administration, also claimed that too, because she's trying to make sure she's still in the same good graces of Donald Trump, who called all you guys trash, garbage, should go back to your country, fix it, because all you do is run around and kill each other. You a bunch of fucking murderers. There has to be this point when you finally decide. And as you saw, his motivations at the beginning were based off of, you got us looking bad, where people are saying, I told you so. His concern is that people are telling him, I told you so, rather than telling himself, shit, maybe I should change up what it is that I'm thinking and who it is I'm buying all of their madness from. Maybe have an internal conversation and don't worry about the people telling you, I told you so. The reason they're telling you, I told you so, is because they told you so. When you gave the middle fingers and said, you guys are on, I don't know if he specifically said this, but this is generally what Republicans say when other minorities come forward and tell you that you're falling behind someone who hates you and is going to implement policies to screw your life up. They say things like, you guys are on a Democratic plantation, stupid shit like that. And then you find yourselves on this Republican plantation being called garbage. Hey, here's the Attorney General of the United States of America, Pam Bondi. It goes further than just the rhetoric. It goes to people in these legal positions like her that are going to try and implement policies to fuck your life up.
Attorney General, I want to bring you to this illegal immigrant from Somalia that has now been charged with multiple counts of rape in Minnesota, including a minor. What can you share about this investigation? They have said that this administration is just trying to demonize the Somalian community, but we got a criminal here.
Okay, Lawrence, this guy came into our country in 2015 under Barack Obama. He let him in legally, just like all the Afghanistans he's been letting in. He let him in legally in 2015. He committed a rape of a child, a horrific rape in 2017. Then he committed another rape in 2024. He's arrested in state court, lives in the Minneapolis area the entire time. Last name Muhammad, he's 28 years old. He's convicted in state court of both rapes. They let him walk out the door on probation. Double rapist. Pled to him, walked out the door. Then, under our administration, he commits a new rape. He is arrested. He is in federal custody. We are going back in time now, charging him again with kidnapping and the rape of the 2017 case. And I can tell you there are more charges to come. And again, this is good police work. They took his DNA, ran his DNA through databases for all these unsolved rapes. So let's wait and see how many charges come after that. That should frighten everyone in this country, Ainsley.
Yes. I mean, this is disgusting. Raping a minor. And I'm reading on this information, victim 1, victim 2, victim 3, a little girl.
Lawrence Jones started that whole thing by saying, they're saying you guys are out here trying to claim that all the sweepingly claiming that you're demonizing all Somalis. Take it away, Pam. Go ahead and demonize all Somalis by talking about this one guy who raped 13, multiple rapes of children, who was caught up with child sexual assault. You mean kind of like the president of the United States? You mean kind of like the guy who continues to cover up all of these child sex trafficking guys, who said to Ghislaine Maxwell he wishes her well and the dude is damn near about to pardon her? You mean the guy who's been trying to cover this whole thing up and say that nothing ever happened? You mean the guy with 34 felony convictions? If we're going to go from this same policy and the same thought process, Pam Bondi thinks we should maybe go after all old white men that are around Donald Trump's age, because he has been accused multiple times of assaulting, raping, and sexually assaulting children, and also breaking the law at every turn. It's weird. Maybe we can say old white racists are all criminals. It's the same thing. Maybe our guy, Muhammad Amin Ahmed, maybe he'll begin to see what it is that everyone else sees. I'm not going to hold my breath, because the problem he has is being called out rather than fixing his thought process. So there's that. Isn't it weird? Suddenly, Somalis, because the fascist in the White House is fixated on it. What happened to all those Haitians eating the dogs and the cats? Remember that too? That exploded into all of them saying how 100% sure they are about all this. Suddenly, there's no more talk about, Haitians eating dogs and cats and geese all over those neighborhoods. It's weird how that works. But they move right on to the next group that they're going to go and demonize. Good job. And by the way, similar to when we identify these liars, and the next time you see them talk, understand that they're probably lying. Same here. If your community, if your group, if your one small segment of wherever community in this country hasn't been attacked yet by this guy, they're coming for you. So think ahead. Any minority Trump supporters, they're coming for you next. I don't think the Somalis understood that he was going to come for them by the beginning of December, but here they are. Let's move on to the next story. Like I said, I got a lot. It's a Friday, and I got this damn Nas in my system now at this point. Let's go ahead and move on to this next thing. I guess that's a failure for the supporter of Donald Trump, the Somali American that's the supporter of Donald Trump. Here's a failure that's direct from this Trump administration. It's like a consistent failure that keeps happening. The decent part about this whole thing is that it was expected.
Breaking news, a grand jury has declined to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James. Let's get straight to CNN's Caitlin Polans. Caitlin, what are you learning?
Well, Caitlin Collins and I have just confirmed through some sources that indeed a grand jury sitting in the federal courthouse in Norfolk, Virginia today, they looked at the possibility of indicting Letitia James for mortgage fraud, and they said no to this Justice Department. Now, this comes just about 10 days or a week or so after a judge previously dismissed the case. That case was dismissed against James. It was the same mortgage fraud case, we believe, that the prosecutors were trying to get off the ground again today. It had been dismissed because previously a judge looked at it and said that the prosecutor who had taken it through the grand jury the first time wasn't validly doing that job, and so that they needed to try again with a grand jury to reconfirm an indictment if they wanted it. We do, though, believe that the Justice Department could try again before a grand jury, potentially a third time, to try and secure a James indictment. But we do not know exactly when that might happen. We were told that this could be not a time for premature celebration. Jake?
All right.
They talk about the stopping on the premature celebrations all the time, but these small celebrations keep happening because this Trump Justice Department continues to go after the same folks for the same things and keep getting rejected in court. Remember, I said before, these guys go to court and they lose. Then they lose again. Then they complain about the justice system. Then they lose again. Then they eventually think they're going to get everything handed to them from Trump's hand-picked Supreme Court. That's always been his idea because he knows he sucks at this. He knows everything that he says, everything that his attorneys go and talk about and argue, get laughed off in court. So the latest laugh fest came from the fact that for the second time, in a different way, actually a more stark way, this specific case against Letitia James got tossed. The first time it got tossed, but this time what happened was this grand jury said, no, how about we just don't do that? Letitia James' attorney was talking about how rare it is for this to happen.
Were you surprised that they couldn't get her indicted today?
I have to be surprised. I've practiced law for a long time. And in my experience as both a prosecutor when I was that in the Justice Department and as a defense attorney, I can't tell you a time in the federal system, not the state system, where a federal prosecutor thought a case was strong enough to bring to a grand jury and the grand jury has said no.
So you haven't seen anything like this before?
I have not.
Coming from Abby Lowell, that says a lot. Were you surprised?
When federal prosecutors bring charges, they're so sure of it. From a grand jury perspective, they know they're going to get that indictment. This is unprecedented. This doesn't happen. Maybe because the guy that they're following behind is unprecedentedly stupid. Here's a statement from Letitia James specifically on this. Look at Donald Trump's dumb ass at the bottom of this. Look at his ass. Anyways, that's someone else posting something funny about him. Here's the statement from Letitia James. As I've said from the start, the charges against me are baseless. It's time for this unchecked weaponization of our justice system to stop. I'm grateful to the members of the grand jury and humbled by the support I've received from across the country. Now I will continue to do my job, standing up for the rule of law and the people of New York. I could literally hear that in Letitia James's voice. But again, that's been the approach here. She has to keep talking about how baseless these charges are, and then a grand jury agrees. And then when one grand jury gets kind of handpicked to make that then happen, after they start presenting things, there's another reason why this whole thing sucks. They've really cracked the code on how to suck many times over and over again in court. And by the way, as this whole thing continues to play out and people are seeing how bad this really looks and how they keep getting rejected, one thing that this former Department of Defense Special Counsel Ryan Goodman said was the more they lose, the worse the case even gets if and when they finally get this all handled on maybe the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh, eighth try.
It's just an extraordinary moment in the sense that a grand jury not returning an indictment is on its own terms highly unusual.
Right.
We already knew from the first indictment that it was quite flimsy, to be frank. So the idea here is that it's that week that a grand jury doesn't even return an indictment. Were the government to try again and get one, they go back to square one in a certain sense. Then they're walking with an indictment that can work in court. But if any other jurors in an actual case get wind of that one way or another, the whole idea around it, the public consciousness, is that this is a very weak case.
But it sounds like what you're saying is that something gets so poisoned by a grand jury saying no, that really would lower the chances of any second try.
Lowers the chances, and one of her strongest defenses is that this is a vindictive prosecution. The fact that the grand jury did not return an indictment would strengthen it incredibly if they were to get a second indictment, because the argument behind vindictive prosecution, the paradigmatic case is when the government either brings a flimsy case, so the fact that it was already rejected by a grand jury, or tries to re-indict somebody a third time. That would be the hallmarks of vindictive prosecution. I'm not saying she should win that, but it really strengthens her ability to win that argument.
The more they try, the more they strengthen the case of vindictive prosecution, which they haven't even had to present yet because they can't get that far, because this whole thing is led by Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, what's her name, Lindsay Halligan, and these two new guys who nobody even really knows their name, because he's just picking folks off the street and he's like, hey, do you want to go stand in front of a court and embarrass yourself? Do you have no shame? Work for me. So they keep on trying. And it makes sense. If you've already seen a case get tossed out and you see another case get rejected by a grand jury, and then eventually some grand jury that they're going to keep seeking out wherever they can find it to get this past that first line, all it does is strengthen the case against them. And maybe also they can also go by the previous things that this president has said, his extreme disdain and hate for Letitia James. And again, don't forget, the reason he hates Letitia James is because she busted him, because literally she's the cop and he is the criminal. He's upset about that. He's been upset about that for a while, and he hasn't been shy about letting everyone know how much he hates her.
The fascist and racist Attorney General of New York State, Letitia James. You have an Attorney General who's a total stone cold crook, New York State. Letitia James, a total crook. A crooked AG, Letitia James. Letitia James from New York. This is another real Lola. There's no question about Letitia James, the corrupt Attorney General of New York.
So we've got constant, overwhelming instances and examples of this guy telling me how much he hates Letitia James. And oddly, he keeps trying to go and prosecute her. Don't forget also the accidental post that he put out there that was apparently meant to be a text message to Pam Bondi to go after all of his political enemies. You have to do it now. If you do it one time and do it the second, third, and the fourth time, never stop until it's over. So we've got all the instances of him hating her. And there's also him at the same time when he was getting prosecuted by her, constantly talking about what it is that she's doing to him. It's all set up for this vindictive prosecution defense.
Almost all experts and legal analysts have stated for all to see that the litigation before Judge Engoron is a sham and a disgrace, a dark time in the New York judicial history. It's a very fabled history, mostly good, but this is a very bad time. The Attorney General, Letitia James, is a racist scoundrel who thinks she has total power and control over the judge. And we'll see if the judge is going to do the right thing. But so far, it's been a very unfair witch hunt, and the whole country is watching.
The whole country watched. The whole country understood how much of a criminal you are. And also the whole country saw that Letitia James is the one that busted you. I wonder if they think the folks that are part of these grand juries or the attorneys or these judges that look at all this, if they've just been like asleep for the past several years, if they don't understand how he talked about the weaponization of the Justice Department, that is right before he went and weaponized the Justice Department. There's this weird sense of like having control over everyone's brain that they think is they just say it enough times because they'll keep saying it over and over again that suddenly it'll become reality. If we do it again, we can completely ignore judicial precedent. We can ignore legal processes. We can ignore the fact that this will be bad for us because Donald Trump can't let it go. He's obsessive about this. Can you imagine other things that these guys could actually be doing, like work rather than this type of stuff? Nobody's talking about that. But, when anything else happens, we'll definitely hear Republicans talk about how waste of taxpayer money. How much of our money is being wasted? How many people, how many criminals are actually escaping and getting away with whatever kind of crimes that these folks who are now going after people over nothing are then too busy with? Nobody asks those questions anymore because Donald Trump says so. But at the beginning, as you heard, that reporter, Caitlin, I believe, Poditz, I can't remember her name, but Polance, Caitlin Polance also said off the top, they don't know when or if they're going to come for this third time. So I found the smooth voice of Scott MacFarlane from CBS to talk about how soon this just might happen. And oddly, it may be happening right now.
At some point today at the federal courthouse in Norfolk, the Department of Justice is expected to try again to get a grand jury to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James. They tried yesterday, not so much, didn't happen. Grand jury said no. as they continue this effort to prosecute this critic of President Trump. Worth going through the timeline here. They did secure an indictment a few weeks ago. Judge threw it out, threw the case out, saying the prosecutor was unlawfully appointed. They gave it another go yesterday, didn't happen. Try again today. Grand juries have been pushing back against some of what the Department of Justice has been bringing recently. We saw it in the sandwich thrower case earlier this year, where a grand jury at first said, no, we're not going to make a federal charge out of a tossed salami sandwich. The Department of Justice tried again, brought a charge in a different way, and then the trial jury said no. I spoke to a few of those trial jurors over the last week, one of whom said there was at times laughter or mocking by the jurors during deliberations about the case that had been presented to them. That defendant was found not guilty at trial after the initial grand jury said no. So as we watch what happens in Norfolk, Virginia today, we watch and wait to see if there's another no from a grand jury, whether this becomes a contagion in other courthouses.
It could be as soon as today. It could be happening right now. Maybe they're securing their indictment. Maybe they're finally going to get to that next stage where they could potentially get embarrassed again in court. They always get embarrassed in court, but they always say that they're winning in court. Just like they always say they don't ignore court orders after they lose in court, and then they go to ignoring court orders. By the way, what's happened to Kristi Noem since it's been shown that she was ignoring court orders? I think she has a certain number of days. Her time is almost up to produce this evidence to show why she completely ignored court orders and kept deporting people that these judges specifically told her to stop deporting. It's like a lawless administration or something. So here, last little piece from Abby Lowell, who's again the attorney for Letitia James, talking about how much this is strengthening their case, as was mentioned earlier. But I want to get it specifically from him because he really talks about how bad this is for them. And really, it's almost like a warning sign, like, yo, stop now, bro. You're already embarrassed.
The law, which is very hard to prove. Basically, with all they've done, I think we filed a motion that probably had 7 single-space pages of statements President Trump has made to go after her. And then the unprecedented nature of bringing such a case with no basis, given that career prosecutors have said there's no case. And now if they reindict or if they try to up it again and they keep trying it again, all they're doing is making our motion stronger and stronger.
And Bill Pulte, the official that you mentioned, he's the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. He has made clear that he's used, the power of his job in order to seek out information like this. What do you think this spells for him if they have failed to seek a second indictment?
Well, I think there's 2 parts of that, Caitlin. The first is he has already been exposed in articles from his own people in the Inspector General's office and other people inside the agency who have come forward and saying he's violated rules to do what he's doing. That is, I understand, under some review itself. As to whether or not this teaches him that not everything he does turns in the way he wants. Remember, A.G. James was the first person he did this to, and then came Senator Adam Schiff, and then came Federal Reserve Board Governor Lisa Cook, and then recently Congressman Eric Swalwell of California. Maybe they'll get the message that this is not the way that you're supposed to do your job.
He's not going to get that message. Come on, Abby, I'm sorry. Come on. Maybe he'll get the message. The message is not to do the right thing. We have to stop assuming that their plan is to do the right thing and they keep making mistakes. These are not mistakes. These are plans. It's supposed to violate all norms and all legal processes and do what Donald Trump says, like a fascist leader would. That's what they are. That's why they wanted people to stop calling them that. So people wouldn't notice the fascist moves and then hear someone say, they're fascists, right? And then eventually, that equation has to be completed. We're looking at it right in front of us. This is who they are. It's what they're about. They're also about stumbling, bumbling, and making fools of themselves, which leads me to the next story. But even before I get to that point, hi, everyone. I noticed everyone maybe not coming from the beginning, but man, we are rolling already on a Friday. Hope you guys are enjoying your Friday. Hope you're going to come into a decent weekend, get your drinks out, make sure you're ready for this one, because we're going back to Patches Patel. Before we even do that again, I forgot, you guys. I don't do this every day. I'm liking the stream. Where is it? Oh yeah, I liked it. I wish you guys would do that as well. Also share it and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. We are getting a nice little influx of subscribers. I enjoy you guys. Maybe you're telling your friends like I ask you to all the time. That'd be wonderful if you haven't done that yet. Let's move on to Cash Patches Patel, as I pointed out before, because he's in celebration mode. It's a good job. They're tracking down criminals, they're making America safer, and they're taking pipe bombers off the streets. Nobody needs bombs in the streets of Washington, D.C., and your boy Cash is all on top of it.
General, when you attack American citizens, when you attack our institutions of legislation, when you attack our nation's capital, you attack the very being of our way of life. And this FBI and this Department of Justice stand here to tell you that we will always refute it and combat it. We will provide the safest country the nation has ever seen under President Trump's leadership here. And that's what we did here today with great resolve on a case, General.
Cash Patel's in a good mood. I just want to think about what is that he said. When you attack American citizens, when you attack our institutions of legislation, when you attack our nation's capital, you attack the very being of our way of life. It's really odd because he's talking about January 6th, and he's not talking about the 1,500, 1,600 or so people who attacked American citizens, attacked our institutions of legislation, and attacked our nation's capital. He's not talking about any of them, who many of which are, repeat criminal offenders afterwards. He's not talking about them. Who he's talking about is the pipe bomber who placed some bombs in front of the RNC and DNC offices, apparently in DC, right around January 6th, and they're in full celebration mode. He wants everyone to know, without the jacket, with the patches on this time, I think he's going to abandon that. Without his jacket on, the guy is now going to go ahead and talk about how great they did their job versus the Biden administration. You know why? Because Donald Trump is obsessed with old ass Joe Biden.
On a case of massive public importance, as it should be, an individual who is now alleged to have placed multiple explosive devices to blow up multiple people and multiple officials, innocent civilians, is now arrested thanks to the brave men and women of the FBI and the interagency. I want to take a moment to thank the Metropolitan Police Department, the United States Capitol Police, our brave prosecutors, the Department of Justice, and our leader, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro, whose relentless work on this case made this possible. As the Attorney General said, we did not discover any new information. What we did, an investigation spearheaded by the Deputy Director and the ADIC of our Washington field office, brought in a new team of investigators and experts, re-examined every piece of evidence, sifted through all the data, something that the prior administration refused and failed to do. As a result of that, we generated numerous investigative leads, executed multiple legal process with our U.S. attorney partners, and came to this conclusion today. And that is why we were able to safely secure this individual into custody.
I understand the celebratory nature. I understand talking about how well you did. All these guys do it. It's not like it's a Republican or a MAGA thing. When you catch a criminal, when you catch, or at least you have this suspect in custody, the point is you want to come out and talk about how you've accomplished these things. All of that makes sense. It's just weird that the whole purpose for doing this is to talk about how you did it so much better than a previous administration, as if there's, a comparison that needs to happen outside of you just getting the job done. In fact, he also went over on Newsmax, one of these, to talk even further about it. Matter of fact, make a differentiation between their approach and also what Joe Biden did. And he has a couple of opinions about why.
They deliberately did not want to solve this. I mean, this was challenging, but it was solvable, right?
In my opinion, the prior administration either was completely incompetent or intentional in their weaponization of justice and law enforcement. And we know they have a track record of the latter with Arctic Frost and Russiagate and so many else. So I put this in that folder. What we did was we rejected and are in the process of destroying and leveling the weaponization of justice and law enforcement and delivering results for the American people. Like they deliberately did.
The Biden Justice Department purposefully didn't find the guy because they're too busy with their weaponization I just talked about how, for the second time, their weaponization of the Justice Department to go after Letitia James and James Comey and everyone else they could potentially name, that it keeps failing. So we're literally looking at them describe this administration and then heap that on the Biden's administration, which, by the way, didn't do enough as far as going after criminals. I mean, the 34-time felon in the White House should have been in jail. But to talk specifically about how they just didn't want to do it. I mean, maybe they're too busy with their weaponizations, or in his media tour to celebrate and congratulate himself on this. I'm sorry, to demonize anyone else about this and not even fully congratulate himself on it. What he did was he went on with Don effing Jr. And, stupidity flowed from that conversation too.
Since January 6th, 2020. But, I never understood how this could just disappear. I mean, 2 pipe bombs targeting the headquarters of the Republican Party, targeting the headquarters of the Democrat Party. I can understand maybe the media ignoring targets on the Republicans because, again, their silence is golden and they only report on that. But, I mean, that to me is a far greater threat than any of the nonsense, a grandma taking a selfie inside of January 6th. And yet it just disappeared. It's almost like that was the backup plan if they didn't get what they wanted out of January 6th, which to me seems like a very clear setup operation.
And look, you're absolutely right. Thanks to President Trump's sweeping victory and mandate for accountability across all sectors of law enforcement, especially those that harm Washington, D.C. and our elected leadership and American lives visiting our nation's capital, we just went at it with the same approach that we go after every single case this FBI handles. No resource will be spared. No agent or analyst or staff support will be spared. These guys worked literally around the clock for the last 6, 7, 8 months producing these lines of evidence, finding the leads. And you now know, based on the publication of the press conference, that yes, there were tips in there clues in there that we keyed in on, like this.
You can see the objective here, right? You can totally see the objective. You're going to go on with Don Jr., who's then going to talk about how these pipe bombs were somehow a backup plan from the Democratic Party to somehow stop Joe Biden being certified as president. It never makes any sense. Why would Democrats want to stop it and then send 2,000 rabid MAGA Republicans into the Capitol to kill people and go after their Democratic officials? It literally doesn't make any sense. That's their entire objective, though, to talk about how this is all someone else's issue. So since it's all someone else's issue, all you have to do is scratch a little bit deeper into the surface. And I know a few of you guys already know where the twist comes in. It's being reported this morning that the accused DC pipe bomber, Brian Cole, that man there in that picture, told investigators that he believed the 2020 election was stolen. Wait, how does it make sense that the guy who planted pipe bombs on January 6th to stop the certification of Joe Biden to become president after he won that election, why would he believe that that Donald Trump won and the election was stolen? Why would he believe such a thing? I got to read a little bit into this to try and figure out where this guy's brain was. So during interviews with the FBI, the suspect arrested in this pipe bomb probe told investigators that he did, in fact, believe the 2020 election was stolen, providing perhaps the first indication of a possible motive for the bombs being placed near both the DNC and RNC headquarters. The FBI arrested him, he's 30 years old, just yesterday on these charges that he planted those pipe bombs near those headquarters. The night before, they then went in there and got to rioting and talking about killing Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi and everyone else they could think of. Cole spent hours with the FBI investigators and made multiple statements. Dan Bongino, deputy FBI director, told Fox News on Thursday that the FBI had interviewed the suspect at length, but he didn't elaborate. I wonder why he didn't elaborate about the things that they discussed with this guy. Maybe because he's saying things that they all have been saying. And then he went, oh shit, wait a second. You mean the guy who's accused of planting pipe bombs could have been in agreement with us, who wanted to stop this whole process? It's weird how that all works together. It's like reality. Here's a little bit more. The FBI and the Justice Department declined to comment for this story. Why? Hey, Kash Patel is all over people's podcasts and in front of podiums. Why won't he talk to CNN about this? The Bureau believes that the man compiled pipe bombing bomb making supplies for months before leaving the viable explosive devices outside of those offices. Cole is also charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and attempted malicious destruction by means of fire and explosive materials. Man, these are serious charges. I mean, you can't leave pipe bombs around, especially on such a big day when so many people are collected in one particular area for, the certification of the Democrat that had won that election. Again, I just wonder, where the hell did Brian Cole, the suspect in this pipe bombing case that Kash Patel can't stop talking about, that is until someone asks him, hey, how about his belief systems? Where could he have possibly gotten the idea from that the election was stolen? Here's Donald Trump at the Christmas tree lighting ceremony just like a day or two ago.
With the birth of Jesus, human history turned from night to day. His word and his example call us to love one another, to serve one another, and to honor the sacred truth that every child is specially made in the image of God. For 250 years, think of it, our country is 250 years, this is a big year. I'm so happy that our presidency was delayed. Otherwise, I'd be sitting home watching television, not being invited. I would be extremely upset. And remember, we have not only the 250 years, but this is a big one. We have the World Cup and we have the Olympics coming up, all within this 4-year period. See, if they didn't rig the election, I would have been sitting, because can you imagine? I wouldn't have any of them. And I probably wouldn't have been invited. I would have been very upset by that.
This sorry sumbitch couldn't even focus on the Jesus script that they wrote in his teleprompter to go over to talk about Christmas without going on to his tangents about how the election was rigged and stolen from him. Hey, did you guys know Brian Cole, the suspected January 6th pipe bomber, believes that the election was stolen? I wonder where he got that idea from. The guy who literally in December of 2025 cannot even stop talking about it. Here's an extra bonus clip. It's not directly related to the whole revelation that this guy believed that the election was stolen, but it is directly related to the fact that there's a deputy director of the FBI. His name is Dan Bongino. See, it's this guy with this weird looking top of his head, the trollish looking face that he's got. And he was asked by Sean Hannity about his previous theories on January 6th.
You know, I don't know if you remember this. This is before you became the deputy FBI director. You put a post on X right after this happened, and you said there's a massive cover-up because the person that planted those pipe bombs, they don't want you to know who it is because it's either a connected anti-Trump insider or an inside job. You said that, long before you were even thought of as deputy FBI director.
Yeah, that's why I said to you, this investigation's just begun. We are pretty comfortable. We have our guy. I think again, legal process starts to surface and information, facts start to come out. The public's going to be very comfortable with the investigation that was conducted under Director Patel and his leadership. He's been great on this. But I don't want to, listen, I was paid in the past, Sean, for my opinions. That's clear. And one day I'll be back in that space. But that's not what I'm paid for now. I'm paid to be your deputy director, and we base investigations on facts. And, it was interesting. I was looking out in the crowd today at the presser, and I saw a couple of media figures who you and I both know who promoted the other scandal, the collusion hoax. And I thought to myself, the difference between us and them is, we evolve. As information and new inputs come out, we can produce different outputs because that's what we believe in. We believe in facts and investigations guided by facts. There were people out there in that crowd, I'm sure still believe in this collusion fairy tale hoax. So we'll see. We're going to be guided by the facts as this thing goes forward. And I can't stop the, leave the truck here without thanking the president. The president.
The most important thing is to make sure you thank the president before you leave the truck. You notice that? He actually accidentally said that's always been in the memos. Anytime you talk or defend the lawlessness of this administration, make sure you thank Donald Trump, or else he's going to be very upset. He might shit his pants. But Bongino, there's a couple things in that. He believed before that a connected anti-Trump insider was doing this as an inside job. I assume they meant to make MAGA supporters look bad. Again, this has only so far been Brian Cole, that suspect, talking to the FBI and authorities about his belief that the election was stolen. I assume their next thought is going to be, well, of course, he's lying to us and saying that's what he believed in because he's an anti-Trump insider doing an inside job. So he has to finish the mindset and tell us that he believes the same thing that we've been preaching for years now. But how is it that previous, when Dan Bongino said he believed all that other stuff about inside jobs, that he was getting paid for his opinions? And now maybe one day he'll go back to doing that. But now they base their investigations on facts. If you previously had thoughts that you spewed all the time, and now you base it on facts, that's literally saying that previous to you then being the deputy director of the FBI, that you based all of your opinions on lies, not on facts. So now you're thinking facts because now you have to, be in this official position of backing up Donald Trump. It's weird how the facts keep moving, though. It's also odd how, as Kash Patel, Patches over here, keeps talking about how they're going after all these criminals. Their main purpose in all this, I think the main reason they want to celebrate and talk about how they've done all this and try to ignore the fact that this guy was a Trumper, the main thing they want to do is try and show some kind of credibility to this FBI and this DOJ, whose number one goal and objective is to cover up these Epstein files for Donald Trump. Never forget, everything goes back to that. It's supposed to be legitimizing them so that people will believe their lies about this child sex trafficking ring that Donald Trump every day appears to be seeing more and more that he was significantly a part of, had information about people, laughed it off. Who knows? Who knows? But they definitely want to protect him. I got a few minutes left. Aren't these fucking clowns? Aren't these guys clowns? I don't know what the next excuse is going to be. Maybe the guy will disappear. Who knows? Kind of like the guy who shot Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, disappeared. Kind of like the guy who shot Charlie Kirk in Utah, disappeared. When are those trials coming? I haven't been keeping track, so I don't know. Maybe these are questions that are very simple answered, and I just haven't looked them up yet. In fact, maybe I will. Where are they? When are these trials going to be done? Why hasn't that guy from Butler, Pennsylvania been put in prison yet? Shouldn't that be the number one goal here? He shot your president in the ear, bro. When are these suspects going to finally face consequences? When is MAGA going to demand that their king gets his pound of flesh for this attempted murder? Did you notice that? Nobody's talking about these shooters anymore. I'm sorry, maybe I'm crossing over into Dan Bongino style conspiracy theories. You guys can fix that for me. I appreciate it. Let's move on. So yesterday, the Admiral Bradley from this whole boat strike thing that Pete Hegseth committed those war crimes over, went and spoke privately, so it wasn't televised. We didn't get a chance to see everything that he showed and told these folks in the legislature, senators and representatives about what it is that happened. Showed them the video of this double tap boat strike that everyone's been talking about, and out and emerged the one propaganda spokesperson for MAGA. In this particular instance, it was like, put me in, coach. Tom Cotton got the nod, and he's out there defending this about what it is that he saw in this private meeting.
I want to thank Admiral Bradley and General Kane for coming to brief about the strikes on September 2nd, which were righteous strikes. These are narco-terrorists who are trafficking drugs that are destined for the United States to kill thousands of Arkansans and millions of Americans. The first strike, the second strike, and the third and the fourth strike on September 2nd were entirely lawful and needful, and they were exactly what we would expect our military commanders to do.
What exactly did you see in terms of the video of the second strike? Were there survivors?
I saw two survivors trying to flip a boat loaded with drugs, bound for the United States, back over so they could stay in the fight. And potentially, given all the context we heard, of other narco-terrorist boats in the area coming to their aid to recover their cargo and recover those narco-terrorists. And just like you would blow up a boat off of the Somali coast or the Yemeni coast, and you'd come back and strike it again if it still had terrorists and it still had explosives or missiles, Admiral Bradley and Secretary Head said exactly what we'd expect them to do.
Did a JAG tell
Times said it's one of the most disturbing things.
Tom Cotton is the lead on this from MAGA to talk about what is it they saw from these boat strikes. Apparently, these two that they hit the double tap with were trying to flip the boat back over, in the middle of the ocean, and then they had all these viable ways of, gaining some kind of an approach to the United States of America with, parts of a boat. Whatever. Let's go ahead and talk to. Let's talk to a Democrat that also saw some of this information and was asked specifically about what is that Tom Cotton said that he saw and how he wants more of it.
At the time of the strike, you could clearly see the two people on the boat.
And they weren't calling, radioing in, anything like that.
I mean, if they had a radio device on them, it must have been really small because it sure wasn't apparent from looking at the video. And they certainly did not appear to be signaling to anybody.
Can you square that with Senator Tom Cotton saying that they were trying to flip a boat that was loaded with drugs over that was bound for the United States? Is that what you saw?
That's patently ridiculous. I mean,
that's not true in your view.
Gosh, Admiral Bradley didn't even pretend that was the case. There was no way they were turning this boat back over. The boat was completely disabled, and Admiral Bradley admitted that. It was drifting with the current. It was going to go wherever the current was going to take them. And I don't know, I didn't see all 48 minutes between the first and second strike, maybe for the first 10, but it appears that the boat was split at least in half. I mean, there was this tiny little bit of the bow that was still, capsized. They weren't trying to flip anything over, first of all. Second of all, there is the claim that the drugs still could have been there. There's no real evidence of that. You see the first strike, boat's on fire, flips over, maybe in that tiny portion of the boat. But that's speculation, and it certainly wasn't clear from the video.
Outside of Representative Adam Smith there talking about how it's impossible to do it, just imagine this. This is the level of superhero, supervillain type of images that these Republicans want people to imagine. So these guys got blown up, flipped upside down, their boat's capsized, and it's in pieces. So therefore, they're trying to flip it back over in the middle of the ocean after being bombed like this, flip it back over with this superhuman strength, get back in it and somehow enable it to go moving again. Man, what weak ass bombs the United States of America has. This is weird. You bomb this smaller boat, blow it up, and then these super villains can come back and do it because they've got drugs pumping through their system. The fear, the scare tactics, and what is they want you to believe these folks can do is, it's over the top. Tom Cotton wasn't even done with his story times and talking about what is that he believed and what is that he saw.
I didn't see anything disturbing about it. What's disturbing to me is that millions of Americans have died from drugs being run to America by these cartels. What's gratifying to me is that the president has made the decision finally, after decades of letting it happen, that we're going to take the battle to them. And we're going to continue to strike these boats until cartels learn their lesson that their drugs are no longer coming to America.
Did a military JAG say that the second and follow-on strikes were all lawful?
Yes, look, this is not like a firefight in some cave in Afghanistan that had 3 people. This was witnessed by literally hundreds of uniformed and civilian personnel at the Pentagon, at Fort Bragg, at other installations. Dozens of them were lawyers. Everybody was watching. Everybody had seen the intelligence and the legal basis leading up to these strikes. Everyone was present during it. And that continues to be the case. There's been no change in the guidance or the order that the Secretary has given to our troopers. And in subsequent strikes, there's an example where survivors actually were shipwrecked and distressed and not trying to continue on their mission. And they were treated, as they should be, as non-combatants. They were picked up by U.S. forces.
This is the approach people should always have when listening to politicians, specifically people who are trying to defend something that happened. Tom Cotton and the Republican Party have this approach. You start by pushing the fear tactics, make sure people have this level of fear in their heart. That's probably like the major one you go with. So now you've got your audience like shaking. Now, I'm scared now, Tom. What do I do? Next step is to then say, we're badasses though, and us murdering these people potentially with this war crimes, that's us protecting you so that those fears that I just pumped into you that are based in these two guys flipping the fucking boat back over is us quelling those fears that I just gave you. After we quell those fears that I just gave you, let me then go start talking about how in other instances we then saved the people after we bombed these boats, and then whoever was left floating, we did save them. So why didn't you do it this time? What's different about this one? So if that's your standard, that you've saved people before the way you're supposed to in those situations, and you didn't this time, that I feel like the next follow-up question is, what was different here, bro? These guys were super terrorists. Maybe that's the next term they're going to come with. Super terrorists. They're going to say they got off the boat and they had like, some kind of emblem on their chest, and we got really afraid. So we, bombed them again. Here's an instance. I want to show you guys just what I was saying. It's those types of terms to scare people more. And in order to do that, you have to use these super scary terms that are made up, like, narco terrorists, as if that's some kind of an official legal thing that you talk about.
These are narco-terrorist, foreign designated terrorist organizations who are bringing drugs to our shores that have killed millions of Americans and thousands of Arkansans. If you think these strikes are justified and righteous, as I do, and I want them to continue, then of course the second strike, when you have two survivors who are trying to flip their boat back over and continue on their mission, remain in the battle. Unlike a subsequent strike in which there was no such indication, and they were what's called distressed or shipwrecked under the laws of the sea and the law of armed conflict, and our military went out and picked them up.
Is it your expectation that these strikes will continue?
It's my expectation and my deep hope that these strikes will continue.
He hopes that they happen more. Tom Cotton's on board with more war crimes. Again, narco terrorists, narco terrorists. I want you guys to notice how many times it gets said by anybody else you hear talking about this. Once they get cornered, once they need to explain themselves, it goes back to rhetoric. It goes back to fixing your mind to think whatever it is that you were just questioning, throw that out of your brain. I'm not going to address it. Go back to the fear. Because once the fear strikes back in your brain, you stop thinking, and we can go back to doing our murderous process and policies of killing people without telling you who they were, what they were doing. And it's just the conclusions are, trust us, bro. We're not liars. So that narco terrorist line, you don't have to listen to me tell you that the narco terrorist line is something that they came up with in order to scare people. Here's a conservative. I played him the other day, but this is just the last little 30 seconds of him saying this again. Do you guys remember when Judge Napolitano, who used to work with Pete Hegseth on Fox News, said these are war crimes, and he hates even saying that because he used to work with old Pete. This is him talking about the narco terrorism lines.
Look, narco terrorist is not a legal term. It's a political term, and using that political term does not justify.
But if they're
killing
labeled terrorists by the administration, doesn't that indeed indicate that they are?
No, only if they're engaged in violence can the military kill them. The military can't
But it
legally.
seems violent if they're coming here with drugs that could kill Americans. Is that not so?
Well, they're 1,500 miles from the United States on a speedboat with a 50-mile distance. It's inconceivable it could reach the United States.
The facts just never match up. Again, narco-terrorism is a word that they're using. And this anchor here was asking, well, can't the president just call anyone a terrorist and then start killing them? That's fascism. Again, they keep denying it, but you keep describing it. Can't the president of the United States designate anyone that he and the rest of his cronies want to call terrorists and then therefore claim you can kill them? Why would that be legal? Especially since, again, they don't like to tell you what it is that they've got. They don't like to give you any information. The information is always, trust me, bro. Here's some information actually from CNN about what has it happened, because we're hearing these accounts from some of these guys. Here's a little bit more of it. So these two men that were killed as they were floating, holding on to that capsized boat in that secondary strike in early September didn't appear to have radio or other communication devices, is what the top military official overseeing the strike told lawmakers on Thursday. So listen, Admiral Bradley said that these guys didn't appear to have radio or communication devices. Admiral Bradley, the guy that Pete Hegseth and the rest of these Republicans said, hey, why are you attacking our warfighters? Admiral Bradley is one of the smartest, most well-decorated military guys that we've got. Trust me, you can listen to him. We're listening to him. And he said that they didn't have, radio devices to do all this stuff. As far back as September, defense officials have been quietly pushing back on criticism that killing the two survivors amounted to war crime, as we know, that they were legitimate targets because they appeared to be radioing for help or backup. Reinforcements that, if they had received it, could have theoretically allowed them to continue to traffic the drugs aboard their sinking ship. So if the guy that you said we should trust, because you're saying that Pete Hegseth, gave him all of this authority to then commit this war crime, if we should believe him and stop bashing him, we're believing him. And y'all's line about how they were radioing for help, he dispels. Should we still listen to him? Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley acknowledged that the two survivors of the military's initial strike were in no position to make a distress call in his briefings to lawmakers. That same briefing to lawmakers that Tom Cotton was in. Bradley was in charge of Joint Special Operations Command at the time of the strike and was the top military officer during the attack, as we know. I want to keep reminding you, Tom Cotton was in that briefing, listening to Admiral Bradley talk about how the radioing in is impossible because he was looking at it. In fact, he was the one who authorized that next strike. Keep that in mind as you listen to, again, for some reason, Tom Cotton was sent on the media tour to dispel this. Here he is on CNN.
Drug runners did not appear to have a radio at the time they were killed, and Admiral Bradley said they were not in a position to call for help at the time. So what threat did they pose?
Well, John, the threat they posed is the threat that the boat that was destroyed yesterday posed and that all these other boats posed. They're running drugs in high volumes into the United States that have killed hundreds of Arkansans in recent years and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Americans. It's not exactly what Admiral Bradley said. He said that they didn't have any intercepts of these two drug traffickers trying to radio or call for assistance. That doesn't mean they weren't doing so. It doesn't mean they weren't trying to access communications equipment on the boat, or that they didn't have any of their drug trafficking pals trying to come pick them up.
Did you see any evidence of them trying to use a radio in the video you saw?
Well, I saw lots of evidence of them standing on the boat that had been capsized.
That wasn't my question. Did you
Trying to
see
get
any
it
evidence?
back, trying to get it back up, trying to flip it over.
Did you see any evidence of them trying to use a radio?
No, I didn't, John. No, John, but they were clearly not incapacitated. They were not distressed. One guy took his T-shirt off like he was sunbathing. They were trying to get the boat back up and to continue their mission of spreading these drugs all across America.
Did they get
That's
the boat
what they
back
were
up?
doing, and that's why Admiral Bradley ordered the second strike. Well, no, they didn't, because we killed them, and we were right to kill them, and Admiral Bradley was totally justified in a decision he made.
That sounds like a bad appearance. No, I don't have any evidence of the things that I'm making conclusive statements about. I know none of it. As a matter of fact, the guy who was a part of this said that they couldn't radio it, but they didn't because we fucking killed him and I want more of it. You're the bad guy. You know that, right? Like, you're the bad guy. But as usual, it goes back to them talking about how they were sending drugs to our shores to poison your children. There's the scare tactic again, to mix and jumble up your brain, to no longer think about the fact that they committed war crimes. And also, these narco terrorists could have never made it here from the distance and the abilities of these boats to get here. So whatever drugs are being trafficked, whatever drugs you're blowing up out of the water, it doesn't have much to do with here. But they want you to be concerned about your children being fed. They literally use these terms. They're feeding our children, not grown adults, only your children. They're feeding your children drugs. Your children aren't buying drugs. Your uncle isn't buying drugs. Your father isn't buying drugs. Your brother, your cousin, your people aren't buying drugs. They're being fed them. Isn't it weird? These Republicans never talk about black, brown, anyone else, folks that are addicted to drugs. They never talk about how they're being fed drugs. They never talk about how, drugs were fed into certain communities. They never really talk about that. The only people that can get fed drugs are the kids and grandkids of rich white Republicans that are now talking about how they're being fed drugs. Man, why are these narco terrorists doing all this for free? They come and disperse drugs throughout our communities, our white rich communities only now. And when they do so, they do it for free. No one pays them. Your children don't give money for their drugs. It's just dropped on their doorstep in an Amazon package, and they go, "Oh, this is great. Let me snort this. Oh, let me inject that." Maybe your children are fucking junkies. Maybe they're the same thing that you call a bunch of poor folks that are on drugs. Maybe they're that. I'm almost done. This is the last clip. Because there's one other Republican that is actually concerned about this, Representative Mike Turner. And again, it goes back to the original point that I've been making, that I think I also played someone else making the other day, about the fact that we're talking about the second attack and how that's potentially a war crime. We really can't allow them to make us think that all of these attacks that they've been bragging about, that Donald Trump specifically said we could potentially be killing fishermen, and fishermen don't want to be out there anymore. As they described all of these potential illegal attacks, the first version of these attacks is illegal. Mike Turner says that he and other Republicans are concerned about that. Here it comes.
We start first with the legal opinion under which these attacks on these boats first began. And members of Congress had questions as to whether or not the validity of the legal opinion, the construct of the legal opinion, and then the operations that were being undertaken under the constructs of the legal opinion. But what's really clear here is that this is not necessarily the normal rules of engagement. This is not a battlefield. And where they're undertaking these attacks under what is this issue of attacking the drug trade. This is not the normal construct that we have of terrorism, where we think of like ISIS or Afghanistan or Iraq. So there's very much concerns where we all go back to the issue of the intelligence and what intelligence is being used. What do we really know about these individuals? What do we know about this cargo? What do we know about the communications that here? And quite frankly, many members have very much concerns as to whether or not the accuracy of what information is being used is to the level for us to even know what's happening in this area. And members are very concerned.
He's beginning to question even the stories that they're telling, the evidence-based things that they're saying. He's concerned over the intelligence about carrying out these strikes in the first place. Man, they just might be in trouble this time. So I welcome Mike Turner. Go ahead, man. It's about time to go ahead and get rid of the trash. Go after them now. He's saying all the right stuff. Rand Paul is saying all the right stuff. Go ahead and go back to disagreeing with us about everything else. How about we go ahead and get rid of these guys, because they're making you guys look even worse. And the more that you agree with them, the more folks are going to come after your ass when election time rolls around. And we know that's really all they care about. Tom Cotton is a liar. And he's not even that good at it. Okay. Happy weekend, everyone. I'm glad you guys showed up on a Friday. Are you guys good and inebriated? I'm not. I'm just hyped up a little bit. We have the whole weekend coming forward. I will see you guys on Monday. For those of you guys that hung around, I appreciate you. So go in for a late 5 to 7 minute raid into TDR. Let John know that, we had some extra partying to do. Let them know I say, hey. All right. I'll see you guys on Monday. Of course, it is the best damn day of the week. I'll talk to you soon, Ma. I know you have some thoughts about what's been going on today. See you guys later. Have a good weekend.